He's former NFL quarterback, led the Seahawks to the NFC Championship and went to a Super Bowl. Former ESPN analyst Matt Hasselbeck on the program. How's life there, Matt? You doing okay?
I'm doing great. It's a little different. I've been coaching high school football, having a blast. Our season just ended last Wednesday, and it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. And I'm really sort of thankful for the opportunity this year.
Okay, if people are watching on Peacock, they can see all the footballs back there, all the helmets back there. What's the one thing that you go, that's my prized possession of everything I have there?
Man, none of it. Like I grew up, my dad played my dad played in the NFL, and like he'd get these game balls. He played 9 years for 4 teams. And like me and my brothers, we would just like scuff those game balls up. Like it'd be like, oh, Orange Bowl, Colorado versus Ohio State. It'd be like, this was given to you by Bill Parcells, blah, blah, blah. And that's what we played with, man. Like I have the Marshawn, I guess I didn't know this at the time. I had the Marshawn Lynch Beastquake ball, from that big wild card game. It was in my daughter's room for a while. Like that dog was probably chewed on by my dog. You know what I mean? So like sort of none of it. I don't know what else to do with it. It's I don't know. It's just stuff. It's the memories, I think, that matter more to me.
Okay. Should a team with a losing record be able to host a playoff game?
Well, I'm super biased because we were 7-9 in Seattle in 2010 when Pete Carroll was first-year head coach. We had a tough year, and then for whatever reason, the defending world champion New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, they were the wild card team and had to come play us at 7-9, and we won the game. But I tell people a lot about this, and I was talking to my high school team about this year. Pete Carroll had us believing that we were not 7-9. Like everyone in the NFL says, hey, you got to play your best football at the end of the year. Pete Carroll had us believing that we are 0-0. They are 0-0. We deserve to be here. And I think that was a big reason that, we played so well that day and we beat them. So no, it doesn't make sense, but like playoff football and NFL football doesn't make sense sometimes.
And I'm always told, well, rah-rah doesn't work in the NFL. College guy doesn't work in the NFL. Why is Pete Carroll, a rah-rah guy, the oldest coach in the NFL, even though he doesn't act it? How does that work?
Listen, I was 35 years old when I was his starting quarterback. And the last thing I wanted was this like rah-rah college guy. Like I was just not going to be into it. Bag drills, you got to tap like the top of the door before you walk into every room, before you go out to practice. Like I wanted to hate it. I literally wanted to hate it. And listen, back then, 35 years old as a starting quarterback was like ancient. Tom Brady and people have like blown that out of the water. But back then, so like all I can say is I thought he was incredible as a head coach. Like he had like a John Wooden quality about him where like on Wednesdays, our coaches, our assistant coaches, we weren't even allowed to talk about who we were playing next. It was just about us versus us, our best versus our best, our ones versus our ones, which is very different in the NFL. So I didn't necessarily think it was as rah as it was, we're going to do everything right and the score will take care of itself, which for me is a Bill Walsh thing that I learned from Mike Holmgren and Andy Reid, and I believed in that. And so, I'm a huge fan of Pete. I think he does a great job.
As we like to do, we look at, the Bills or the Cowboys. If you're looking at a game, do we look and praise the Bills for what they did, or we, spend that time criticizing the Cowboys? And I don't know X's and O's at a level to discuss this, but I only taking what I saw, and that's Buffalo's defense, 2 high safeties seem to frustrate or confuse Dak Prescott. Can you explain what they were doing that made him seem really pedestrian?
I'll make it even simpler than that. When you travel the country, you meet NFL fans, okay? There are very few fans that are as great as the Buffalo Bill fans, right? They're special that way. I mean, there are other fan bases that are great, but mostly what you hear from Buffalo Bills fans is like, they'll tell you the story when they went and saw a Bills game. Okay. And I would just say the same thing, throw kind of the X's and O's out a little bit. You talk to NFL quarterbacks, where do you hate to play? On the list, on the podium, is I hate to play in Buffalo in December. And that was before they had Josh Allen. So I just think that when you go on the road, there's a crazy crown on that field. It kind of throws people off a little bit. The weather, the wind, they play this stupid horn. Not when you're at the line of scrimmage, but when you're in the huddle trying to call a play. So if you have a play that's called 29 techs and there's another play that's called 28 tacks, and you're expecting I'm from Boston and my left tackle's from Alabama, and you're expecting him to hear it perfectly, just the communications at the line of scrimmage, in the huddle. Like anyone who's played in Buffalo, you're just like, yeah, I get it. They look like a high school team that hasn't practiced, but it's hard to go on the road. That's why this home field advantage thing matters so much, and it matters more for some than it does for others. And think back to like when I was growing up, the Bills were going to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. A big part of that was how hard it was for the Raiders, for the Dolphins, for certain people to go up there and play in Buffalo. It's a real thing.
But do you think Buffalo had that game plan? They were going to run the ball 40 times against Dallas?
Who? Like, who are you? Buffalo doesn't run the ball like that. They really don't. No. But what happens when you're a play caller, if something works, you keep doing it until the other team proves they have an answer for it. It happens in blitz. Like, I remember one time we were playing the Philadelphia Eagles, an early start for me. They brought this like Brian Dawkins and another linebacker blitz 4 times a game. Like, that was all they were ever going to bring it. So like, we weren't going to worry about it too much. Well, guess what? We never picked it up in those 4 times. So guess what? It was blood in the water. We saw it probably 14 times, but we had no answer. And so like, I think that's a little bit what happened last night.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the Dolphins and the Cowboys. And maybe a little bit with the Eagles. Like tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost this game. The Niners, it feels like we know who they are. How many teams do you think you go, I know exactly who that team is, whether they're on the road or they're at home?
There's some teams that you feel really confident in. When the 49ers are healthy, when Brock Purdy's healthy, I think you feel really confident in that team. But it's also the NFL. I mean, it's also the NFL. That, like, anybody can win. There's a reason they say any given Sunday. They don't say any given Saturday. They don't say any given Friday night. This is the NFL. And, you come into a game plan with what you think is going to work. Or, these guys are human. Like, how many times have you seen the best team in football lose to a team that's never won? It's just, I remember when I was playing the Detroit Lions where they went 0-16 that one year. And like, no one wanted to be the team that lost to the Lions, but like every single one of us could have been that team. Like, they weren't that bad. They really weren't. But it's just, I think it's part of what's great about the NFL. Anybody can beat anybody.
Talking to Matt Hasselbeck, former NFL quarterback and former member of ESPN. You start to look at MVP candidates, and I don't know what your criteria is on what is most valuable. I've said all along that I don't know if a team asks their quarterback to do more for them than Baltimore does with Lamar Jackson. But, that doesn't mean Brock Purdy shouldn't or can't win, or if it's Tyreek Hill or whoever else we're throwing in there. But how do you decide who is an MVP?
What is the criteria? Like, who knows? It's not the Heisman. I know that. That's not what it is. There's going to be guys like that deserve it. And I think as the season comes to an end, like, it'll kind of clarify itself a little bit. Lamar Jackson, certainly one of those guys. The vote could get split in San Fran with Purdy and McCaffrey. I'll just say this. Back in 2005, Sean Alexander won the MVP. Mike Holmgren was our head coach. Brett Favre had won 3 consecutive MVPs. When I was in Green Bay, Mike Holmgren was the coach. And hearing what Mike Holmgren would say to our team, and I particularly remember this with Sean Alexander. He was like, we are going to go for this award. We are going to get Sean this award. We're going to get him the NFL touchdown record. Sean, you're going to do it, but you're not going to do it alone. You're going to do it with our fullback, Max Strong, with our offensive line, Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson. This is a team award. Okay, the MVP is a team award. This is a feather in the cap. We had 2 wide receivers that year from Penn State, Joe Jaravicius and Bobby Ingram, who knew how to block in the running game. And he challenged the wide receivers. You, right here, you might be the difference in Sean Alexander getting this award. So I don't know who should get the award. I don't know, but I do know this. There are coaches and players in the NFL who, if their teammate gets it, they view it as like, we got it. Mm-hmm. And so they're all chasing a Lombardi. They want to hoist a Lombardi, but the MVP is a cool thing, obviously for the guy who gets it, but for the teammates as well. And we felt that with Sean when he earned it. And it was just a really, really cool thing.
What were you like when you're watching Favre do what he's doing and trying to understand how to play quarterback in the NFL? Because I don't think anything he does is applicable to what you did when you were a starter.
Yes and no. Like Brett, Brett, you see the wild stuff. But I'll say this: my very first quarterback meeting that I ever had was with Andy Reid. He was our quarterbacks coach in Green Bay, and he said, "Listen, Brett Favre is amazing, okay? But his decision making, his fundamentals, those types of things, they're terrible. So don't study that. Do not study that. What I want you to study is all the other stuff, the intangibles, how he leads the huddle, how he leads the team, how he knows the name of everybody in the building, how he intimidates the opponent without even saying one word." And so it was those types of things. The other thing that I noticed about him is, like, in college, for me, I played a little bit like a robot. All right, if they're in an under front, they bring two backers here. I throw the hot to the running back. Brett was like, "Man, screw that. I don't freaking care. The Z receiver's open. Robert Brooks is open. Antonio Freeman's open. Mark Chmura's open. I don't care." And so, and I would hear Mike Holmgren say this. He'd say, "Brett, you're an artist, not a blacksmith. You're an artist, not a mathematician." And so he just played ball like you played at recess when you had a snow day and you were just out in the front yard of the street with your friends. And so, like, that, I think, is what I took from him. Yes, it's important to play on time. I was looking at the fundamentals of the backup quarterback, Doug Peterson, but I was watching sort of like the reckless abandon fun that Brett Favre played with. And there's a fine line. And it took me like 3 years to figure it out, but it was cool. It was definitely cool.
Sterling Sharpe not in the Hall of Fame. What are we missing here?
Well, the Hall of Fame's an imperfect science. There's a lot of lobbying, as you know. It's a little political. It's a lot of timing. I'll just know this: when I got to Green Bay, Sterling Sharpe was not there. But the way that Brett Favre coached every receiver at all times, the sentence would usually start something like this: "Well, this is what Sterling used to do," or "This is what Sterling told me." So his impact there was felt for many years after.
Yeah, he was dominating, man. And then, like, Terrell Davis got in, injury cut short his career, and I don't know why we don't apply that with Sterling, maybe. And, like, how many years do you need to play at a high level before you go, that's Hall of Fame worthy? In today's game, Gale Sayers got in, he got injured, with his knee, never came back. But Terrell Davis, that's not that long ago.
When I was playing, the thing it was said in locker rooms, I don't know if it was true, is 6 Pro Bowls. 6 Pro Bowls gets you to Canton. But Pro Bowls have changed. Guys bail out. You're going to the Pro Bowl, but you're not voted to the Pro Bowl. It's a very, now there is no Pro Bowl. So, like, it's a different thing. But I think Terrell Davis and Alex Gibbs and John, like, they kind of brought that zone scheme and sort of changed the game. And if you look at the run game that you see in the NFL right now, like, if I had to point to a point where it's just like, oh, it really started to change here with that Mike Shanahan offense, that now you see, everybody running. Terrell Davis had a huge part of that.
It's great to talk to you, and hope you're enjoying the high school stuff. Seems like a lot of fun if they listen to you. Who are you channeling here? What former coach are you?
It's a lot of Mike Holmgren. It's a lot of Jim Zorn, actually. It's a little bit of Pete Carroll. I was coaching my son, though, who's the senior quarterback. So it was a lot of Mike Holmgren and me, a little bit of clashing at times, but we won the state championship this year. So it was like at Gillette. It's the first time that I've ever won a game at Gillette. So it felt pretty good.
Great to talk to you. And thanks again for joining us.
Anytime.
That's Matt Hasselbeck, former NFL quarterback, led the Seahawks to the Super Bowl in 2005 and worked for the mothership as well.